If you want to get the biggest bang for your buck when negotiating with these suppliers, I'm going to be sharing you 4 tips to get started right now. Let's go. Now, a disclaimer, all of these are in my opinion and from my experience talking to suppliers directly inside China. This is not an end-all be-all solution, but just sharing you some key points that I have learned on the journey. You have to understand that when you're talking to suppliers, they are suppliers, not trading companies. They have a different mindset, and this can be applicable for any large business. Whether you have a trading company or dealing with a supplier directly, you have to know the way they think. The suppliers already have orders and channels to fulfill their orders. They really care about the numbers and quick wins. They're not so investment oriented or long-term oriented. This is just being straight up whenever you talk to suppliers on 1688. So what does that mean when you actually have a chance to talk to these suppliers directly? Well, at first, you need to be reachable. You need to get a WeChat account. Sorry, they're not gonna contact you on WhatsApp. They're not gonna contact you on Skype, especially if you're using domestic platforms like 1688, Taobao, Pinduoduo. They may have this, but most likely not. You need to master how to use WeChat because it offers a lot of tools that you should know, especially if you don't know any Chinese. And I have these videos up here on how to register and how to master the tool as a foreigner. These suppliers, a lot of the time, and actually most of the time, they just don't tell you about it, already have trading companies or third parties dealing with customer inquiries themselves. They don't want to deal with these inquiries sometimes. They rather outsource this. So if you want to actually talk to the source, the factory that makes the goods, not the middleman, you need to get a WeChat. Just note that when you're using platforms like Alibaba, AliExpress, you may not be talking to the factory, although they claim they are. You actually may be talking to a middleman or a trading company without knowing it. I've actually ran into situations where I was talking to a supplier from 1688, but they were actually an agent and they also had the same products on Pinduoduo, and it was just like, what the heck? Like, you're the same person, and it kind of got messy, but you get the point. When you finally do get a WeChat, it's important to communicate in Chinese. Do what you have to do to keep it in Chinese because they may ghost you if you speak in English. But now that you're reachable, let's go into the other point. Sampling and clear requirements. Factories and suppliers understand that samples need to be sent before placing large orders. This is standard for them. So be upfront with your requirements and samples. These guys are not consultants. I need to say this again. These guys are not consultants. So you have to be as specific as possible with what you need for your business. None of this, I'm thinking about selling these kinds of goods in my market. I'm looking for something around these lines, and very vague requirements. They're gonna ghost you, or they're gonna push you really, really hard for requirements. So let me give you an example. One of my customers want to buy like a car seat cover. They need to know the materials that it was made out of. Cotton, polyester, or whatever it may be. They need to know the exact sizing of the car seat. Like to the dimensions. They know to the dimensions. If not, they're gonna mess up the order because they just care about getting the numbers, right? They need to know the exact coloring. They may need to talk to other people that produce like the silk or produce the cloth to put everything together for the car seat cover. So it requires work for them to actually go seek the right person to provide the right materials and the right color because they have to put everything together in their factory. And then the branding and the logo, exactly where in the car seat cover the brand will be, the font, the size, how you want it to look. You have to be as specific as possible. Don't expect these guys to be like, yeah, from our experience, we expect you to do A, B, C, D. No, they're gonna be like, what are your requirements? And you have to provide these details. If you're not ready to provide these details beforehand, they may not take you seriously and go on to the next person that knows exactly what their requirements are. Let's talk about pricing. But before that, smash that like button if so far you're finding value and can use these tips for your business. So when you talk about orders with these suppliers, talk about large order quantity in the future. They're gonna throw MOQ at you, which for those that don't know, it's minimum order quantity. It's the minimum amount they will produce for you in order to actually produce the goods. Some factories have like 2, and some factories have like 50, and some factories have like 500 depending on the goods. And from my experience, the MOQ is a lot less inside of China on the Chinese platforms like 168 than it is on Alibaba, and you can figure that out yourself just by doing some research. But of course, before they do a large production, you need to make sure the sample is on point, because if you're not comfortable with the sample, it's probably going to be worse when they do mass production. So first, be comfortable with the product and then prove your market. So how do you prove your market to overcome this MOQ requirement? Well, you can use some tools like social media. If you have a social media following, you can take snapshots of your influence to see that you can actually guarantee these sales that you are trying to promise. If you have a legitimate website that you're already selling similar goods at, and you can show them the monthly sales and forecast, then you can get them to believe you more. Obviously, if you have a name card and like a professional business setup, they will believe you more than if you're just a stranger talking to them. If you already have like an email list or a customer base that you can show them, hey, these are my customers that I've been dealing with for years, you are more likely to overcome this MOQ issue. Now, some of these suppliers, I'm not guaranteeing they'll say, yep, we'll do less MOQ just for you, but there's a chance that it can. They will obviously charge you less the more you buy. And you can also get comparables of this kind of product on 168 for the pricing. So don't go in naked when you start negotiating. Make sure before you actually talk to the supplier, you look at 3 or 4 other suppliers in the same industry to have some reference points, because if not, you're at risk for them to rip you off. And the more you can build a relationship with these suppliers, the better. So if you can organize FaceTimes, phone calls, so they can physically see you, maybe you have an FBA store or something you can show them, maybe you have a retail shop, that they can believe that you're actually going to produce the orders that you're promising, that's actually better. And lastly, actually my largest tip for you guys, practice. Like, this takes reps. The more you practice with these suppliers, the more you can get into their mindset and understand why these trading companies make your life easier, because honestly, they don't want to think about consultation. They just care about the numbers and the sales. Think of it like a video game. Like, let's say you're trying to get an ultimate weapon in Final Fantasy. You need to go through a lot of steps to actually get that weapon, a lot of trials and a lot of practice. So same thing with these suppliers. Think of it as like you're leveling up. Every time you have experience with these suppliers, you gain experience and you can be better next time. So let's summarize these key points. First, get WeChat and make yourself reachable with the Chinese platforms. Don't even think about using other platforms to communicate. When in Rome, do like the Romans, just get a WeChat and get it over with. Be very specific with your order. They are not consultants, nor do they care to be. That's why they hire third-party companies to do that for you. Know the pricing strategy. Research the pricing of other competitors and show them social or business proof so that they can lower the MOQ requirements. You can show them your website, your past order for similar products, your social media and your influence, and large numbers you have done before, so that they can feel more comfortable doing business with you and being more flexible with the MOQ. And don't ever pay everything up front, pay percentage, and then work your way from there so that you can make sure this is an actual supplier that can fulfill your goods in a timely fashion. And lastly, practice. Practice, practice, practice. Because then you can get them to focus not so much on the numbers, but more on the business, and they may be able to lower that MOQ for you. So what are you waiting for? Get busy. Remember to like this video because it does help me out when it pushes these videos in the algorithm if you found value, and subscribe for more weekly sourcing content from China. Let's make sourcing easy. If you don't want to deal with these suppliers and you want to have an agent help you with these tactics, be sure to check out this video to show you the importance of working with agents when sourcing from China.